Ladies and gentlemen, Roster Watch Nation, welcome back to the epic Roster Watch podcast brought to you by RosterWatch.com and presented by MyBookie.ag, where you can get a 100% deposit bonus right now by using promo code ROSTER. More on that in a minute. My name is Alex Dunlap. We're back to it, guys. The week one main slate DFS breakdown and walkthrough podcast. We'll just go through the main slate, talk about some of the best plays, talk about some strategy. It's going to be an interesting week for a lot. It's interesting for a lot of reasons. I think that we don't know what's going to happen. We don't ever know what's going to happen. But with no preseason, there's been so much talk about certain roles or different coaches or different scheme changes and things like that. We have our best ideas about what's going to happen, but the fact of the matter is that we simply, at this point, we're going to learn a lot this week. But there's some good plays out there. There's some awesome tournaments, and let me say from the start, you guys know that I play a lot of cash games. I like to dabble in these tournaments, and this week's a fun week to dabble in these tournaments. Whenever you have this light your cash on fire type of $5 millionaire maker over on DraftKings. Most of the pricing that I'll refer to is on DraftKings, but of course the tools up at RosterWatch.com, the Hyper DFS lineup generator, the DFS cheat sheets that are powered by all of our incredible tools. Those are available to all of our pro subscribers, and they're for both DraftKings and there's one for FanDuel as well. So let's just go through the slate. We'll talk over some of these plays, decide what the hell we're doing, and get on about our business. Enjoy watching some college football the day before our big Sunday of NFL action tomorrow. So we start with the Chicago Bears traveling to the Detroit Lions. Chicago, 20.25 implied team total. The Detroit Lions, a 22.75 implied team total. Here, as far as the public betting in this game, we have 35% of the bets on the Chicago Bears, but 59% of the money. So looks like maybe a little bit of sharp support there for the Chicago Bears here in this spot. And man, it's interesting to think about the fact that the sharp bettors are on Chicago whenever we know that everybody thinks Mitchell Trubisky sucks. But the fact of the matter is Trubisky's been good against the Detroit Lions. It's a Matt Patricia defense. They play a lot of man. Mitchell Trubisky can hurt you with his ability to run the football. Whenever you play, everybody who's played football knows whenever a defense plays a ton of man, it's going to be a situation where the team is going to be easier to run on if you're the quarterback, just because in man you turn your back and you run with your wide receiver. Anthony Miller has had big games versus these guys. Allen Robinson has had big games versus these guys. If you're playing in tournaments, I think stacking Mitchell Trubisky with Allen Robinson and or Anthony Miller is perfectly fine. Anthony Miller, especially. Let me just pull up his. What did he? I remember he did something. He did something against these guys in it was either last week in the second game they played, I believe, last year. And this was back whenever they still had Darius Slay. I guess it doesn't matter for Miller because he'll be going against Justin Coleman in the slot. But let's see. So at Detroit last year, he caught 9. He went 9 for 140 in week 13. That's against the same corners. Now with Darius Slay gone, you have Allen Robinson that'll be going up against a rookie, and Jeffrey Okudah, maybe Desmond Trufant. Is it Trufant or all? Yeah, Trufant. There with the Lions now. So look, Allen Robinson's a dude we have ranked really high this week. Anthony Miller's a guy who we certainly love and could be a good play this week. Believe it or not, I can't believe I'm starting the podcast out like this. Mitchell Trubisky in one of the better spots. As far as the Roster Watch matchup tool, it has the Detroit Lions. It's the number 12 matchup for opposing quarterbacks. The number 12 matchup for opposing tight ends. I don't know what to do there. I wouldn't worry about the tight end. I think that probably refers more to the coverage linebackers and the slot corners, et cetera, that are going to be lined up against Anthony Miller. So another reason to like Anthony Miller there, who on DraftKings, what is Miller priced at? I remember it being okay. He's 5K. He'll probably be he'll maybe be 5% owned. So, maybe if you're looking to pivot off of one of these, there are going to be some really chalky wide receivers in that high 4 to low 5K range. Whenever you look at those, maybe think about pivoting to Anthony Miller if you're playing in one of those big tournaments. And then David Montgomery is still questionable. As far as the injury report for this game, let's just go over it. So we have questionable as far as fantasy guys. David Montgomery, Cordell Patterson is going to be questionable as well. Jermaine Ifedi, who they've picked up, who could actually have to play some sort of role as the Bears reel in their attempts to, shuffle up that offensive line to make up for the loss of Kyle Long. So that's something to keep in mind. But David Montgomery, it looks like he's probably going to play. He's questionable. So that's good. Tariq Cohen's probably in play as well. The big injury on the Lions side is look at this. And I didn't even know Jeffrey Okudah is questionable as well. So they have Okudah banged up. Darryl Roberts, one of their other corners, is banged up. So interesting there. Just for the passing game for the Bears. I like the passing game for the Bears in this game. It looks like Kenny Galladay is going to be doubtful, which probably makes you want to downgrade Matt Stafford at least a little bit. But it certainly elevates Marvin Jones to where he's gonna become more and more popular over the course of the night and coming into tomorrow morning when everybody's talking him up on Sirius and on the different live streams and stuff. Marvin Jones, I see that Chris Gimino over at Roto Grinders has now updated his ownership percentage now all the way up to 18.6%. Not as thrilled about playing Marvin Jones at 18.6%, but man, a guy that's 5.5K who, we've seen the upside that Marvin Jones has. Go back to what was it? The Thanksgiving game from 2 years ago. 18.6%. I'm not sure if I'll be overweight or underweight on him. I think with Galladay being out, it opens up the door a little bit for TJ Hawkinson. It's an excellent week at tight end because you have Mark Andrews in the nut spot. You have George Kittle in the nut spot. You have Zach Ertz in what seems like a really, really good spot. You have even some of these lower price guys like Jack Doyle feels like he's in a good spot. Well, TJ Hawkinson also feels like he's in a good spot here now that we know that Kenny Galladay is not going to be playing in that one. Let's move on to the Miami Dolphins at the New England Patriots. Cam Newton's first game there in Foxborough. The Miami Dolphins have a 17.25 point implied team total. The New England Patriots have a 24.25 implied team total. The Miami Dolphins, 80% of the bets are on the Miami Dolphins to cover that 6.5 point spread, but only 69% of the money. Whereas the public, why the public is all over the Dolphins, I have no idea. Only 20% of the bets on the Patriots, but those 20% of the bets represent 31% of the money. As for the matchups, the Miami faces basically bottom 6 matchups across every position: quarterback, running back, wide receiver, and tight end. The New England defense, the computer that makes the matchup tool, still views it as a juggernaut, whereas it still views the Miami defense as being not good. I do worry a little bit about the outside wide receivers for Cam Newton and the New England Patriots having to go against now Byron Jones and Xavier Howard. Is there injuries to either one of those guys? Let's see. Miami. So they don't list anybody as being out. They have a safety who's doubtful. The Patriots have not listed anybody except for N'Keal Harry being questionable with a shoulder is all that we're going to be worried about for fantasy purposes. And I wouldn't want to be playing N'Keal Harry against Byron Jones. I wouldn't be wanting to be playing him against Xavier Howard. It looks like Damiere Byrd has locked up the wide receiver 3 role for those guys. And he does have a previous connection from Damiere Byrd's time before he was in Arizona, whenever he was in Carolina with Cam Newton. So maybe a sneaky little connection there, but maybe not even though the matchup tool is I think the matchup tool is not as high on Xavier Howard as I would like it to be, just because of some of the grades that it pulls from some of the scouting sites like PFF and Sports Info Solutions. I think Xavier Howard's probably better than those guys said that he was last year. But I'm not targeting. I think if I'm targeting a pass catcher for the Patriots, that it's going to be Julian Edelman, and he's not going to be owned. Nobody's talking about Julian Edelman this week. There's all kinds of different ownership projections on him, but you see him anywhere between 5 and 10% ownership on that guy, and it would seem to make a lot of sense that he would be somebody that Cam Newton might be drawn to in his first game as somewhat of a safety blanket. James White, that same sort of deal, and then look, Sony Michel. If you can't picture him falling in for 3 touchdowns on 14 carries for 58 yards or something like that, you're crazy. Rex Burkhead could come into play now that we know that Damian Harris is going to set to miss the first 4 weeks with was that a hand or a wrist that he's on the initial IR for. So those are the plays on that side. And look, on the Miami side, head coach Brian Flores said something that we can really take with us and use for all these games as we project them. And that is, like, he said, we haven't had a preseason, no, you shouldn't expect anybody to get a full complement of snaps. So they're going to have people running in and running out. I want no part of Devontae Parker against Stephon Gilmore. He's banged up anyway. Preston Williams coming off his injury. They're probably going to take it easy on him. No, thank you. Any of these ancillary pieces, these Jakeem Grants, any of this stuff. It's just, even if you're trying to win this millionaire maker where there's going to be a million entrants in it, those aren't the kind of plays you want to make, I don't think. I think maybe you want to get the right stacks and maybe some of these overlooked games and get off the board a little bit. But I don't think you need to go that far off of the board. Speaking of the board, a guy I didn't mention in the Detroit game, maybe I should. It looks like Marvin Hall will be lining up opposite Kenny Golladay, so I probably won't play much of him, but that's sort of an off-the-board thing if you're looking at stacking that game with Trubisky, Allen Robinson, bring it back on the other side with Hawkinson and Marvin Hall. That's the kind of thing that maybe you could do if you were interested in stacking one of these lower totaled games. But with this Miami New England one, we've been told that Miami is going to be utilizing personnel in a hodgepodge manner, and when the coach comes out and tells you that, I would tend to believe him. Let's move on to Philly at Washington. This game has a 24-point implied team total for the Philadelphia Eagles and an 18.5-point implied team total for the football team. We have 80% of the bets on the Eagles minus 6.5, along with 73% of the money, 20% of the bets on the Washington football team, along with 27% of the money for them to cover. So sharp action there, sort of right in line with public sentiment. People like the Eagles here in this spot. The one concern I have about the Eagles is the offensive line. Let me look and see if there's been any update about Lane Johnson. We know what trouble these guys got into with losing their right guard to so Lane Johnson is still questionable. So if they don't have Lane Johnson, I don't know what they're going to do, because they've already had, they re-signed Jason Peters to take over for Brandon Brooks when he was lost for the season at right guard. Andre Dillard is lost for the season with what was it, like a torn pectoral or some biceps? So something that sounded fucking painful. So now Jason Peters moves back out there. You got to backfill the guard position, and now it looks like there's no Lane Johnson. It's like, man, Washington's no good, and that team is poorly run, and it's a train wreck. But if you just let me just see. Let's look at their depth chart, and just you look at what they can do along the front seven. Look at the kind of players that they have. They have across the front seven Chase Young, who was their first-round pick this year, and a guy that most people thought was better than either of the Bosa brothers. They have first-round picks and Jonathan Allen and Daron Payne in the interior. They have Montez Sweat on the other side there, and they also have Ryan Kerrigan, who's a first-round pick himself. Montez Sweat's a first-round pick. That is 5 first-round picks in that front seven. I mean, that's going to be trouble for that offensive line. Zach Ertz is going to have to block. Dallas Goedert's going to have to block. Miles Sanders is questionable. Could that open things up for Boston Scott a little bit? Maybe. I'm probably going to play Miles Sanders in season-long leagues. I don't – and where I have the whole player pool open to me, if Miles Sanders is active, I don't think I'm going to play him in DFS. Maybe playing a guy like Miles Sanders is the way to win the Millionaire Maker. Maybe he's going to be okay and they're going to run the wheels off him. But I don't know. I think I'd be more inclined to, if I were to take a big shot on this or try and stack this game somehow, because there are pieces on the other side I'm interested in, maybe going with the Boston Scott or somebody like that could be somewhat interesting. Carson Wentz continues to show up on our cheat sheet products, along with Deshaun Jackson, who we've been targeting for this game basically in all of our season-long drafts. I still like Deshaun Jackson. I'm just looking at fucking, man, it feels like everybody likes Deshaun Jackson. And if he's going to be 25% owned, I'll probably have him in cash. But how are you going to win a turn? It's guys like that with such variable outcomes, like he can bury you if he's 25% owned in a tournament and he goes 3 for 42 yards. And I'm not saying I think that can happen, but with what we've kind of defined along the offensive line, it does. His routes are going to take longer to develop than some of the others. And if Wentz can kind of pepper guys, the more and more I'm talking about it, I'm not sure Wentz should be on the cheat sheet. I know that the cheat sheet is not accounting for the Lane Johnson stuff. If Lane Johnson goes, I think I'm going to keep him on. If we get word Lane Johnson's not going, I don't think I'm going to have much more interest in. I don't have much interest in Wentz anyway, but it's for some reason our computer does. So that's where I am on that. On the Washington side, the two clear plays are Terry McLaurin, who's just mispriced. He'll be going up against Darius Slay, who people have differing opinions about. I still view Darius Slay as being pretty good. But McLaurin's met up with him before and done fine. Not as an Eagle, but he has met up with him before. And the other play, of course, is Antonio Gibson, who's min price for running backs at least, which is the min price on DraftKings this week has moved up to 4,000. I believe he's 4,600 on FanDuel. So actually, that's the same amount of salary cap in those two spots. He's a better play on DraftKings though, because he projects to. What did the Vegas tool say? Let me go to the Vegas tool at RosterWatch.com. I think Vegas has him at a 3.5 over/under with heavy juice on the over for his receptions total. Let me just see if I can pull it up. Fuck me, man. Like, come on, Alex, you can be a little more professional here. No. Okay, so it's 2.5 reception over/under with juice on the heavy. It's 2.5 receptions with the over is a -180. So they're basically telling you it's going to be 3. They're basically saying you're betting over/under on 3 receptions. I think it'll go over. He also has a pretty decent rushing yard prop. I mean, at 40.5 rushing yards, it's like Alvin Kamara's rushing yards prop this week's only 48.5. They expect both of those guys to get it done mostly through the air. The problem with Antonio Gibson, he's going to be very chalky. He's going to be a very popular player, which hurts me badly because I'd like to play him in some of these tournaments. It looks like probably what I'm going to do is just kind of play him in cash games and maybe be a little bit under the field in tournaments as somewhat of a hedge for these idiotic tournaments that I'll be playing where I'm lighting my money on fire with my cash game brain and this stupid top-heavy structure of these millionaire makers. But there it is. It's McLaurin and it is Antonio Gibson on this side. There's been talk about Logan Thomas. I know JJ Zachariason, our friend that was on this pod the other day, has been talking him up a little bit. Our friend, the podfather, Matt Kelly, has been talking a little bit about Logan Thomas. I mean, I get it. He's an athletic dude. He's a good enough player. I just, with the other options at the tight end position, I'm not going to be interested. And then, some of these with Washington, that's just where we are. I think that the plays there are Terry McLaurin and the plays and it's Antonio Gibson, and they're going to be popular. And if you think you're going to win $1 million by stacking, Deshaun Jackson and Terry McLaurin and Antonio Gibson in your lineup and playing popular plays along with those guys and having those be your low kind of price players, I think that's great for cash games. I'm leaning towards doing something similar in cash games, but it's not going to win you a tournament. unless you just get wildly differentiated elsewhere. And even if you do, once you get differentiated elsewhere, you're going to be along with 40% of the field that had that same idea as you did. Everybody knows that McLaurin's underpriced. Everybody knows that Gibson's underpriced. So it's like my friend Blender said on the show I did with him and Derek Carty just earlier on Roto Grinders. And it doesn't make any sense to me, but he's a really smart tournament mind. So if you're listening to this for tournament advice, he just said, you got to look at your lineup and look at it and like, think it looks bad. Just like, well, shit, man. Like I want to play the good plays. So hopefully that'll mind fuck you the same way it mind fucked me. Indy at Jacksonville. We have a 26.5 implied team total for the Indianapolis Colts and a puny 18.5 implied team total for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Another knock on Antonio Gibson and Terry McLaurin being such chalk is that I just said that Jacksonville Jaguars, the worst team in the league, their implied team total is 18.5. That's the same implied team total as the Washington Redskins. It's not like the sportsbooks are expecting a lot of offense there anyway. So that's another knock. With Antonio Gibson, the other knock is there's 4 running backs that could be active. And the other knock is he's never had more than 177 carries in any season he's ever played football, right? So, well, there's a lot to love about Antonio Gibson. I'm excited about it. I'm excited to play him. I'm going to play him in cash. There are reasons to maybe look elsewhere in that same range if you're playing in tournaments. And one guy you can get at 1/5 the ownership plays in this game. It's going to be Chris Thompson right there at 4K, the same price. He's a direct pivot off of Antonio Gibson. People will talk about playing James Robinson from Illinois State, who we loved we were higher on James Robinson starting at the combine than virtually anybody else. His tape from Illinois State is just fantastic. The issue is, when are they going to just hand him the football and try and pound the ball? Like, Indy's going to Indy should steamboat these guys. They should steam race them? They should boat race them. And when they do, James Robinson, if you haven't seen him before, he's big, thick, big like thighs. He's got those Darius Guice, AJ Dillon type thighs. He walks around like that. Who's that? The King of Bahrain that has that robot like bodyguard. Like Robinson walks around like that, right? I don't want to call him a plotter because in his explosive measurables, he was a good enough athlete, but he's a big dude that's going to run between the tackles and who's going to win that way. And I just don't know if that's in the game script for Jacksonville in this game. Whereas with Chris Thompson, it feels like it is well within the realm of possibility that Gardner Minshew's having to dump the football off to Chris Thompson. They're kind of playing from behind. They're in comeback mode. Even if they're not, man, Byron said at Jags camp, Chris Thompson was getting a bunch of work down there by the goal line anyway. Stretching the stretch zone, getting him out towards the pylon, the old flip 90 shit that Gruden had done before, even dating back to his time in Cincy with the Gio Bernards of the world. So I think it makes sense to me to play Chris Thompson. DJ Chark is going to be in play as well. If you're playing DJ Chark and you just want to get weird with a Gardner Minshew kind of garbage time Gardner stack, I think that's fine as well. The real flyer here would be Laviska Shenault. We have no idea what to make of him or what his role will even be, but he's a beast. He's a dude who, he's part of the future. We know after this team let Fournette go, after they've let everybody go, the Jags are building for the future. And whenever that's the case, you want to look at the pieces that you have in place, right? You want to look at let's get a look at Laviska. Let's get a look at some of these. Let's get a look at some of these stars of our future, right? Let's move them around. Let's see what we can do with them. So it's a total toss up, but it is it's just something to keep in mind there on the Jaguars side, a side that I'm pretty much off of outside of Chark and Chris Thompson if I'm looking for a pivot off of Antonio Gibson at that exact 4K range in tournaments. Like I said, I plan on playing Gibson in cash. Kip C is saying in the chat that the ugly lineup makes sense. There'll be quite a few lineups with 3 to 4 sub K. Yeah, yeah, I mean, look, man, it's going to be hard to make an entire lineup that you feel completely comfortable with this week because let's be honest, whose role are you completely comfortable with? I'd like to get a week. I'd like to get a week of data before I'm too sure about any of this. But fuck, man, it's week one. We're gonna play some DFS, dude. We're trying to make some money, and so we got to come here. We got to talk through it on the Roster Watch podcast. We go now to the next game. It's the Green Bay Packers at the Minnesota Vikings. Minnesota's favored in this one. Green Bay, a 21.5 point implied team total. The Minnesota Vikings, a 23.75 implied team total. The Vikings have, 73% of the, so the public feels like I do, being the square that I am as far as betting. I say, why are they favored? Why are the Vikings favored? 73% of the tickets and 87% of the money are on the Packers. So the public sentiment is heavily in support of the Packers here. And the line's not changing, even though 27% of the bets have come in on the Vikings, but only 13% of the money. We have sharp support here for the public sentiment, which is an awfully interesting thing. Let's look at the matchup tool here. The Green Bay Packers, their best matchups come at the wide receiver position. That is because Minnesota's lost their entire defensive backfield. They have a couple of rookies back there. They took Jeff Gladney out of TCU in the first round or into the first. I forgot who they took they took an early round pick on another cornerback. Could be starting Holton Hill. This is just wheels up for Davante Adams. He's probably my favorite play on the slate. He's only 70. You're telling me how much? He's almost 2,000 less than Michael Thomas. And when I was doing my show earlier with Derek Carty, who does the blitz projection system, Derek Carty's blitz projection system loves Michael Thomas more than any other player in the league when he's at home and he's in the dome. And even the blitz is telling you got to play Davante Adams over Michael Thomas. So love Davante Adams in this game. I'm not necessarily sure I'm stacking him with Aaron Rodgers, and I'm not sure how many other players in this game I really like. I mean, the opposing matchup for runners here, not as bad as you would generally think. Middle of the road for Aaron Jones. So you could think about Aaron Jones, but I'm not messing with Allen Lazard. I'm not messing with Marquez Valdez-Scantling. Maybe a 1 in 150 type of tight end play would be Robert Tonyan, who is, I believe, the minimum salary and who's been getting all of the pass receiving work there for the Green Bay Packers. It's just not the week that I would look to do that. On the Minnesota side, if I'm playing Devontae Parker, I would love it to be if that's a Dalvin Cook team. The Vegas tool for this week really likes Dalvin Cook in FanDuel, where he is where he's 8,700. He has a 74.5 yard, 4 reception, 26.5 yard receiving prop. And he's minus 150 to score. One of the best odds to score on the whole entire slate is Dalvin Cook. Dalvin Cook just got paid. He got a big contract. He's going to be pissed off that Alvin Kamara got the bigger contract. I think he's going to come out. They're going to feature him. They're going to be excited to get Dalvin Cook going out there. So, I'm interested in playing him. And other than that, I don't want to play anybody on the Vikings. I mean, sue me. I don't want to play Adam Thielen. I mean, he'll be matched up against a rookie. What is it, Jalen Johnson, for some of his snaps in this game? But there are just other wide receivers that we'll talk about that I like a little bit more. If I'm in that range, I want to try and get up to Davante Adams. I'm not going to play Justin Jefferson. I'm sure as hell not playing Ola BC Johnson. I don't think it's the week to get cute with an Irv Smith or a Kyle Rudolph at the tight end position, as the Roster Watch matchup tool has both of them. I mean, Irv Smith, is what his 4.5 points per game last year in PPR versus the number 21 matchup of the week for opposing tight ends. I'm just not interested in playing either of those guys. So for me in this game, it revolves around Dalvin. It revolves around Davante Adams, and those are my main takeaways from here in this game. Let's see if we can move on to the next one here. And that is my bookie. which it's summertime. And at my bookie, that can only mean one thing. It's winning season. Winning season means doubling your first deposit. Winning season means free bets, super contest, survivor, and more. At my bookie, winning season is all about your chance to win big. Bet NBA playoffs, NHL playoffs, Major League Baseball, UFC, and then some. The craziest sports summer of your lifetime is here. It's simple. Make your picks, win big, collect your cash. Invest in your intuition. Select from hundreds of future bets, or you can bet games in real time with MyBookie's live betting. Put that big brain of yours to good use. Use promo code ROSTER and double your first deposit. Now players get up to $1,000 in free play designed to add more excitement to the sports you love and the games you bet. Thousands of cross-sports wagers, props, and parlays await. Sign up now and bet with the best and celebrate your victory. Your winning season begins today only at MyBookie. Remember, go to mybookie.ag, enter promo code ROSTER, and double your first deposit up to $1,000. It's $1,000 free bucks, guys. mybookie.ag, promo code ROSTER. All right, let me get back to my betting sheet here so we can see where the hell we're at. Where the hell are we? Jesus Christ. Real organized podcast with all these tabs I got open, guys. Sorry about that. Okay. Next game. The Seattle Seahawks at the Atlanta Falcons, a 26-point implied team total for the Seahawks, a 23-point implied team total for the Atlanta Falcons. The public betting in this one looks as follows. We have 69% of the tickets on the Seahawks, along with 90% of the money, 31% of the tickets on the Falcons, along with only 10% of the money. So everybody loves the Seahawks here in this game. They think Russ is going to cook. I'm fine playing Russ. I love DK Metcalf in this game, 5,800. If you look at Tyler Lockett, his pricing is really good, I believe, on FanDuel. Yeah, so it's a 2% salary difference on He's basically, FanDuel's got a $60K salary cap. He's only 6,800 on FanDuel. He's 6,500 on DK, but DK's got a 50K salary cap. So 2% of salary cap you save over on FanDuel when playing Tyler Lockett. The matchup tool here has Atlanta being the number 10 matchup. The matchup tool here has Atlanta being the number 5 matchup for opposing wide receivers. So if it is the number 11 matchup for opposing running backs, so Chris Carson's certainly a guy you could play. No one's going to play him because everybody's worried about Carlos Hyde and all these lies we hear whenever Pete Carroll's chomping on bubble gum and talking shit to these reporters. But Carlos Hyde's, he could be a problem. DJ Dallas could be a problem. We don't know how this split's going to turn out, but if you're not on Chris Carson, it seems like Russell. Look, here's the thing: Matt Ryan's going to get it going on these guys. This is not the Legion of Boom Seattle team that we've talked about. They don't have a pass rush. They're not good on the back end. It's Shaquille Griffin, and it's is Quentin Dunbar, can he even play? I guess he can play. I guess he's still waiting on his discipline from the league, unlike DeAndre Baker and that cockamamie thing that they got into with I'll stay out of that. Matt Ryan's going to sling it. He's going to sling it to Julio Jones. He's going to sling it to Calvin Ridley. Stack those guys all you want. Hayden Hurst is going to be a great play. Todd Gurley, I would not be surprised to see him get 20-plus touches in this game, and he could easily fall into the end. Now would kind of be the time to play Todd Gurley, right? And he's only 6,000, 6,100 on DraftKings. So there's a lot of good plays in this game. I would just say if you're going to be stacking it, it's a 49 total. It's in the dome. It's got a bunch of attractive players at attractive pricing that people like to play. So I'm not sure it's going to win anybody the $1 million unless they hit the super nuts and they play like a Russell Gage or, they played Carlos Hyde, and just stack the other game regularly. But certainly a game that you should have interest in and one that you should know about there. I'm trying to think about if there's any sort of, and there's not really like the target tree is so concentrated with the Falcons, It's going to be Julio. It's going to be Calvin Ridley. It's going to be Hayden Hurst stepping into the old Austin Hooper role. And just one thing to monitor with Julio is just he's a little hamstrung. He's got a hamstring. They say he's fine, but I always worry because there's no better decoy in the National Football League than Julio Jones if he's a little bit banged up, and they're not afraid to deploy him in that fashion. The Cleveland Browns at the Baltimore Ravens. This game has Cleveland with a 20-point implied team total. The Baltimore Ravens a 27-point implied team total. 65% of the tickets are on the Ravens. Only 44% of the money. They like the Sharps like the Browns plus 7.5, which makes sense because the Sharps always like shit that I don't understand. 35% of the tickets are on the Browns, but 56% of the money. So a pretty good discrepancy there. It goes to show you that the people who are betting on Cleveland are making bigger bets, meaning they're probably sharper and more interested and invested bettors. So that's something interesting to keep in mind. I'll never play Nick Chubb against the Ravens. I wonder, like, my only interest in Cleveland Browns against the Ravens is if I'm doing the thing where I'm playing. Let me first say that you don't have to stack Lamar Jackson. We all know that. Lamar Jackson could run in for 3 touchdowns and swindle all of his pass catchers and all of his associated running backs, right? You don't have to play him with a pass catching teammate. But a popular thing to do is going to be to play Lamar Jackson and stacking him with Marquise Brown and Mark Andrews. Both those guys are outstanding plays. Mark Andrews in 2 games versus these guys last year had 3 touchdowns on 17. He had 8 and 9 targets, I think. 17 targets in 2 games last year. That's when Hayden Hurst was still there. That's when Mark Andrews was only playing like 40% of snaps in a game. 17 targets and 3 touchdowns versus Cleveland last year. It's our number 4 matchup of the week versus opposing tight ends on the RosterWatch matchup tool. Everything lines up for it. You get a big discount from George Kittle to go down to Mark Andrews. It makes a lot of sense. He's probably my favorite play at the tight end position, all things considered. Marquise Brown is a great play too. He's put on a bunch of weight. He looks more beastly. He looks more explosive. Everybody said it's going to be a brand new year for him. On the Cleveland side, let me look at the injuries. I thought there was some injuries there on the back end. Is Greedy injured? Denzel Ward that you worry most about with – so Greedy Johnson's out. Kevin Johnson is out with a liver. So Kevin Johnson would have been handled in the slot. You got Greedy, who's their number 2 corner, who's out. Denzel Ward, he's fast enough to run with Hollywood, but he doesn't travel, and they can move him around. And he's a good play. He's going to be 25% owned. My friend Blender HD, that's a GPP and tournament savant, says that you couldn't make a worse play in large field tournaments than a 25% owned Marquise Brown. And that much I can kind of believe. It's kind of like we talked about with Djax earlier. When we have such a wide range of outcomes, why would you want to tie yourself to somebody who, the rest of the field, you're on board with 25 to 30% of the rest of the field. If he does go kaput, you're all toast. So that's sort of how I feel about those guys. Mark Ingram shows up. He's not a play like I would generally like, but he does. Our model does have him showing up on the cheat sheets. So just something to keep in mind there. My question is who to bring it back with on the other side, because people think that the Ravens, they lost Earl Thomas, and this like you still got to these wide receivers. I would not play Nick Chubb against that front. Maybe Kareem Hunt. And then Jarvis, Odell. I don't know. That's why if you're going to be playing a 3-man stack on the Baltimore Ravens side, Hollywood, Lamar, and Mark Andrews, you'll need to bring it back with one Cleveland Browns player in tournaments. And do I really want like Odell Beckham versus Brandon Carr or Marcus Peters or was it Marlon Humphrey when he moved? Jesus. That's when if you like try and get shelter in the slot, you get fucking Marlon Humphrey. So don't know, man. What's that emoji? Just throw your hands up. I don't know. I probably won't be stacking Lamar Jackson with those 2 players because I don't know who to bring it back with on the Cleveland Browns side. 2 more games here in the early window. The New York Jets at the Buffalo Bills. This one should be easy. A 16.5 point total, the lowest implied team total on the board for the week for the New York Jets. Buffalo Bills have a 23 point implied team total. 46% of the bets, but 86% of the money on the New York Jets plus 6.5 in this game. So, interestingly enough, that's crazy. 54% of the tickets. So the majority of the tickets are on the Buffalo Bills on here to cover almost a touchdown, but only 14% of the money. So keep it in mind. If you want to trail the sharps on that play, take the Jets and the points. On the Jets side, I don't know if I have maybe in PPR like DraftKings, you could play Jamison. Everybody's hurt. Rashad Perriman's banged up. He's acting like he's going to play, but he's going to get Tre'Davious White. Maybe let's look at the matchup tool. So the New York Jets are facing brutal matchups everywhere. The Buffalo Bills. So I don't even know. Chris Herndon, maybe it's our sixth worst matchup for opposing tight ends is the Buffalo Bills. Any significant injuries on the Buffalo side that I've forgotten about? Let's see. Buffalo. So they have Josh Norman who's out, which we already knew about. That's it. They have Vernon Butler questionable. He's a defensive tackle. On the Jets side, Denzel Mims is out. We already knew that. Yeah. So Rashad Perriman's going to go. Don't play Rashad Perriman. Maybe Herndon. Le'Veon Bell's cheap. You know, if you're going to beat Buffalo, it's tough, man. But if you're going to beat Buffalo, the one thing on the matchup tool that shows that it's at least a middling matchup for the Jets is opposing runners. It's still the 18th matchup, but that's pretty middling. Everything else is highlighted in pink or red as a must avoid. The running game matchup is a neutral one, and literally between 0 and 1% of the field will be on Le'Veon. So if I'm clicking away, you know, as I keep doing stupidly, just clicking away into this $5 buy-in thing on DraftKings with weird lineups, like as my Fred Blender would say, kind of just look like shit and that you don't feel comfortable with because they're not the best plays, because a million of your best friends are going to be on all the best plays. And Le'Veon would you be that surprised if he had 2 touchdowns or something in this game? The Sharps are the Sharps are on the Jets. It just feels hard. A near touchdown road underdog running back who is going to be getting spelled by Frank Gore. It's kind of like a Frank Gore homecoming, isn't it? Going back to Buffalo. On that side, I can't play Devin Singletary. I can't play Zach Moss. Can you play Josh Allen? Maybe. But do you really feel comfortable with stacking him at this point in time with Stephon Diggs or John Brown? That's the kind of gross kind of play, though, that you might need to win a big tournament this week. As you guys know, my brain doesn't work like that. I like the good plays. I like the sick plays. One of the best games of the early window, the Las Vegas Raiders, or at least from my opinion, the Las Vegas Raiders at the Carolina Panthers. Las Vegas has a 25-point implied team total. The Carolina Panthers 2.5-point home dogs here with a 22.5 implied team total. The Jesus Christ, 43% of the tickets are on the Panthers to cover here and 91% of the money. So the Sharps hate the Raiders. That's interesting because the most popular running back on the slate is going to be Josh Jacobs. And Josh Jacobs has been, through his career at Oakland, a front-running running back. He is a running back that didn't score a single touchdown in Oakland losses last year. All 8 of his touchdowns came in Oakland victories. So this was the game where we looked at it. We said, this is a Josh Jacobs game because they're going to smoke this completely rebuilding Carolina defense that they might still. I still like it, dude. I like Derek Carr in this game. I like Josh Jacobs in this game. I like Henry Ruggs in this game. I like Brian Edwards in this game. I like to stack all those guys with Derek Carr, and you have all the easiest bring back options here. The one problem is if you play, and this is kind of for tournaments, if you play Christian McCaffrey, you're going to need to pay down for Antonio Gibson, and you're going to get in Derek Carr, and you're going to get in Ruggs or Brian Edwards or a cheap pass catcher on the other side to sort of bring back that stack. and all of a sudden you have like that looks like a cash lineup that you would be putting in tournaments, which is what a lot of people are going to do because they don't know any better. You're gonna have a chalky lineup that is going to have a lot of crossover and a lot of duplicity. Is that a word? Duplicity? Like it's going to have a lot. You're going to have some kind of duplicate spots, where you're going to have some 3v3s or stuff like that, versus other chalky lineups that just aren't going to be able to put you over the top. So and it's just because Christian McCaffrey's price is just so cost prohibitive. He's $10K. And in a week where it's so funny, like on DraftKings, they usually in week 1, they want to make it easy for new people to come on board and get in all the players who they want to get in and stuff. So pricing is usually a lot softer than it is. This week, we don't have that many. It's not that soft. There aren't that many just scream at you values. Guys like Devontae Adams, he's a great value. Go look at the Vegas tool. Of course, all of our tools I'm referencing here, all available to our pro members at RosterWatch.com, and so many more. But it's like it isn't like he's cheap. Terry McLaurin seems like he's mispriced. Antonio Gibson seems like he's mispriced. But those two guys play, like I've talked about, that's an 18.5-point team total in that game. It's like how excited are you to jam both those guys into your lineup? Tied for the second lowest implied team total of the week. Now they are probably the only players that are, two of the only players who, you'd be interested in anyway on Washington. I mean, what else are they going to do with the football? But we're not getting a Christian McCaffrey for like 8,900 or something like that, like I would have liked to see this week. Let's see a fantasy football alert here. Miles Sanders is not going to make the trip to Washington due to a hamstring injury that had him listed as questionable. Okay, I'm glad we got this. That's from Adam Schefter. He's not making the trip. Will not make the trip to Washington, and due to a hamstring injury that had him listed as questionable, is out for Sunday's opener against Washington. Boston Scott comes clearly into focus. What's his price? 4,800. He's going on the cheat sheet. And that opens things up. Boston, do you know what the chalk bills? Let me just go through this real quick. This isn't the general. So McCaffrey, Gibson, Scott. Defense. Let's just get you guys seeing my process here. I'll put in a defense first. Let's pay down in here. Just go with the Jets at 2,100. I'll just this is going to be the chalk build. So if we get in Devontae Adams, what does that leave us? Leaves us like 5,400 so if we're going to make this game, if it's a McCaffrey build, now that we have Scott and Gibson, let's put in Derek Carr. Let's put in Henry Ruggs. That could also be like a Marquise Brown or something like that. Yeah, that's going to be a chalky build. And then the D-Jacks will come into play there. You could play or let's just say you could play D-Jacks and McLaurin. Hold on. I'll tell you the chalk lineup. D-Jacks, McLaurin. Can you get Lamar Jackson in this lineup with 3,200 left? You can play Lamar Jackson naked with 3,200 left and get in, 3,200 left after that. I don't know. It's going to be some iteration of Boston Scott's going to become kind of chalk. I'm glad I got that news. Okay. So, all right. He'll be going up on the cheat sheets. I'm getting text now from Byron. The cheat sheets will get updated here right after the podcast. Did I get through that last game? I think I did. Let's move on to the afternoon games. The Chargers at Cincy. Chargers 22.25 implied team total. Cincinnati 19.75 implied team total. I worry about Joe Burrow in this game. I worry about the shitty offensive line of the Bengals going up against the pass rush of these Melvin Ingram and Joey Bosa types. I think it could spell trouble. It's a great secondary too. He's a guy who I had way down in our rankings for season long in week 1, who I have high hopes for the rest of the season. But even in Superflex, even in one of my Superflex leagues, I'm not playing Joe Burrow just because I'm a little bit worried about him this week. Therefore, I'm not really interested in any of the pass catchers on that side. No Tyler Boyd for me. No AJ Green for me. Joe Mixon for me, maybe. Yeah, I mean, in these tournament lineups, I'm finding myself with some Joe Mixon. I think if they're going to be able to do anything in this game, I think it's going to be Mixon that gets it done, and he'll be a good outlet. He's big and he's strong and he can chip, and he's a guy who I think tackles got a tackle like Bobby Hart, or a rookie playing in his first game like Jonah Williams. They'll definitely be able to use a guy like Mixon coming off the edge and chipping a guy like Bosa or a guy like Ingram as he works his way out into the flats. And that's the way that I see Mixon getting involved in this kind of game. We know he's a dynamic player. We know he's gotten the extension, much like Dalvin Cook, much like Alvin Kamara. These guys, right after they get extended, they get featured. So I'm fine with Mixon. On the Chargers side, their line is banged. Their center, Mike Pouncey's out. The right side of the line is bad. The left side of the line is banged up. I don't know if Cincy's going to be able to take advantage, but I think this means to me a lot of Austin Eckler taking advantage of just bad linebackers for the Cincinnati Bengals. I think that he's going to be heavily involved in the receiving game. Tyrod Taylor, if he's under pressure, maybe he'll run a little bit more. I don't know what that really means. I noticed Hunter Henry has a good prop this week. The Vegas props tool really liked him. You can go check out the Vegas tool at rosterwatch.com. Maybe it's just because they think he's going to have to probably be on the field a ton to help that to help that banged up offensive line. I'm not sure that this, and if they have to have a couple tight ends in, does Keenan Allen move outside, or like I don't know if I'm feeling the way that the Chargers are going to look this week outside of Eckler. I like the two running backs in this game, Eckler and Mixon. No interest in any of the ancillary pieces at this time. Even with Keenan Allen, probably, looking at a good matchup on paper, there are too many other players in his price range. It looks like Miles. Yeah. So the news is hitting everywhere right now. So Miles Sanders getting like the Yahoo alerts for all my season long leagues now that he's out. I have to go change those fucking lineups. Okay. Boston Scott, man. Week 1, really? We're going to do this? Boston Scott. DFS, dude, I'll tell you. All right, this game's going to be a big deal. Tampa Bay at New Orleans. Tampa's got a 22.25 implied team total. New Orleans a 25.75 implied team total. Let's look at the public betting trends here. We have the Tampa Bay Bucks with 69% of the tickets and 72% of the money on those guys, plus the 4 points. The Saints, 31% of the tickets -4, 28% of the actual cash. So the public sentiment right in line with the sharps there. Alvin Kamara is probably one of the better plays on the slate. If any of these optimizers are spitting him out as a good play, even though Tampa Bay was one of the worst teams in the league to go against last year for opposing running backs. It was the team. I mean, they shut down they shut him down once, and then the second time he was able to save his bacon via touchdowns. But it would have been a miserable game that second time they played. I believe that was the London game, Carolina, Tampa, and London. Yeah, I believe it was. But if you look back, Kamara last year in PPR, he had fine games versus. I mean, one of his third biggest game of the 2019 season. Don't quote me on that. I should just look it up now that I said it. Anthony Miller, no, not Anthony Miller. That's who I had pulled up. Who was I talking about? Jesus Christ, I talk about too many players. Alvin Kamara. Okay. So last year, his in PPR scoring. So he had at home versus Tampa Bay, he's got a 16.4 pointer. There was a touchdown in this one. So he caught 6 balls in that one. He rushed 16 times for 62 yards. And then at Tampa, he had a 22 pointer, which was his one. That's a bigger one. That's a bigger one. Yeah, his third biggest. I should listen to my gut, man. I do this shit for a living, right? Tampa Bay on paper, a tough matchup for opposing runners. Alvin Kamara is not your typical opposing runner. Andy just got paid a big contract. Michael Thomas cost too much. I want Devontae Adams. I'm not sold on Emmanuel Sanders. These defenses are better than people give it credit for. I mean, look, the game's probably going to shoot out, but everybody's going to be on it shooting out. And if we're looking for angles and tournaments to maybe go, maybe I'm not going to play much of this game. I mean, this is our number 24 on the Tampa side. Tom Brady's going to be without Mike Evans. They're going to be able to concentrate Marshawn Lattimore on Chris Godwin. It's not like he's going to be in the slot the whole game now, where he's going to get P.J. Williams. He's going to see Marshawn Lattimore. He's going to see Janoris Jenkins at certain times. It's our number 24 matchup for opposing quarterbacks, number 26 matchup for opposing running backs. So Fournette, so Leonard Fournette homecoming, but geez, Ronald Jones, Leonard Fournette, we have to see what the usage looks like before maybe in the Millionaire Maker, you can play one. Maybe that's what Blender is saying. Maybe he's saying that's the kind of thing you got to do. In a game like this where everybody's stacking it, they think it's going to go off. Play the gross running back. Play Ronald Jones with Leonard Fournette lingering in the shadows. I don't know. Ugh. And then New Orleans, the only good matchup here, number 22 matchup for opposing quarterbacks, 22 matchup for opposing running backs, a middling number 18 matchup for opposing wide receivers. They could get worse if Carlton Davis is as good as some of the people in Tampa Bay say. Our number 11 matchup for opposing tight ends, though. So maybe some Jared Cook interest there. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me with all the speed they have at the linebacker positions that the matchup tool would spit that out, but the matchup tool takes into account the speed of those linebackers. So who knows? I'm staying away from Michael Thomas because he's going to be very, very popular. And he hurts my ability to play Devontae Adams. And I'm interested in playing Devontae Adams, and I'm interested in paying up in some other spots. And whenever Derek Carty's blitz projections don't involve Michael Thomas and he's at home and he's in the dome, it's like at that point, I'm out because he wants to play Michael Thomas every single time. So believe it or not, man, I think these defenses are a little bit better than most people do. And I know it's the coolest field of football, and I know it's going out on a limb to say it. And I'm not saying that the game can't shoot out. I want it to shoot out. I hope it does for my season-long leagues. But if you're looking for an angle, maybe in tournaments to avoid some of these guys, these defenses objectively are pretty good. And I know you throw that stuff out the window in division. And I know you usually throw that stuff out the window when we're coming into our first game. Historically, we've seen in strike shortened years or years without preseasons, it's sometimes last time it was the defenses that came out sluggish, that the offenses that they hit all their overs on. That could be it. I'm letting you know my worries about why maybe it doesn't happen the way everybody hopes. That's just stacking the living shit out of that game. Brady and O.J. Howard and Godwin and Kamara and Michael Thomas. All right, the final game will be one that we'll need to keep an eye on for sure because of and God bless everybody dealing with the fires out there on the West Coast, man. We had some shit like that around Central Texas one time where you look up in the sky and it's just covered in smoke and it's brutal. So anybody that's been affected by that, all of the love from me and from our company to you guys, all of RosterWatch Nation. But there's an air quality issue that's going to be happening at Levi's Stadium with the Arizona Cardinals and the San Francisco 49ers. Arizona 20.75 implied team total. The San Francisco 49ers are 27.25 implied team total. The public in this game is split 50-50 with 75% of the tickets on the Cardinals and 25% of the tickets on the the tickets are split with 75% of the money and 25 on the Cardinals, 25% of the money on the 49ers. So while the public is split, the sharps are heavily siding towards the Cardinals and the points here. We know that Kenyon Drake, let me just check, man. Alex, you got to fucking check these things and learn not to spout off at the mouth. I think Kenyon Drake, even though this is a bad matchup on paper, had one of his really good games last year versus the San Francisco 49ers once he moved out there to Arizona. It might have even been the 4-touchdown game. No, the 4-touchdown game was Seattle. Versus the 49ers, though, that was his first game where he came in and went for 110 yards on the ground on just 15 rushes and 52 through the air on 4 receptions with a rushing touchdown. So that was like a 27-point game that he had against them. So look, play Kenyon Drake. He was in a boot to start the year, but that's fine. Like I'm going to play some Kenyon Drake in tournaments. Nobody's going to be on him. I'm not going to play any Kyler Murray. I'm not going to play any DeAndre Hopkins in his first game. I want to see how that works out. But no one's going to play DeAndre Hopkins. He is DeAndre Hopkins. And if you did want to play like Kyler and like we talked about, man, these kind of – you got to make stacks that make you feel weird in tournaments if you're going to win. And I'm trying to learn to be a better tournament player. My mind works like a cash game guy that I want to get in the good plays and I want to look at my lineup and say, wow, yeah, I love the looks of that thing. Sometimes you got to take on some like Kyler versus the 49ers. Ugh. DeAndre Hopkins, they've never played a rep together in a game before. Now, DeAndre Hopkins did work out at Allen High School here in Texas a bunch with Kyler Murray and our good friend, Coach David Robinson at Always Open, Coach D-Rob that works with all the best NFL wide receivers. His prop, though, DeAndre Hopkins, I'm trying to talk myself onto a contrarian DeAndre Hopkins play. It's just in the pits. He has a 57.5 receiving yard prop. I like Kenyon Drake on the Cardinals side. I don't know what else I can really get behind. On the 49ers side, Jimmy Garoppolo has had big games versus the Cardinals. It's one of the teams that he actually you think of Jimmy G is kind of sucking, but versus the Cardinals, he's been good. If you just look at last year, so last year at Arizona, he had a 32.1 pointer, and then at home versus Arizona, let's see, search for Arizona. He had a 37.9 pointer. So he was 24 in the one game. He was 28 of 37 for 317 and 4. And then at home versus them last time, he was 34 of 45 for 424 and 4. So, Jesus Christ. Looking at Jesus, I didn't realize the games were that big. So Deebo Samuel's out. Brandon Ayuk is questionable. It makes for a decent stack. If you play Jimmy Garoppolo and you stack him with Kendrick Bourne and George Kittle, bring it back on the other side with Kenyon Drake. That, my friends, is a stack that only